Hi, this is Paul, and this video is going to explain the new features in version 1.1. I'm demonstrating here on the P1-Nano, but everything here works exactly the same on the P1-M and the V1.M. We're going to look at the time format button first. Pressing this does two things. First thing it does is change the time format on the main time readout here. And the second thing it does is change the format of the ruler, the main ruler up here. And every time you press the button, it's going to step through one of the four options that you have. So if we pull this bars down here, you can see these are the options. Second samples, bars and frames. So as I press the time format, we can see it's on bars at the moment. And I press it, it goes to frames, and then to seconds, and then to samples, and then back to bars. And also you can see the time format of the ruler changing to match the time readout here. So bars, frames, etc. Now there are two rulers available in Studio One. This is the primary ruler, and you can get the secondary ruler up by right-clicking and clicking Open Secondary Ruler here. Now, the other way you can make it appear is just by pressing the second ruler button on the console. Now, when this is on, that is, it's lit up, the controller is now dealing with the secondary ruler rather than the primary ruler. And the timecode display here is displaying the secondary timecode, which is this one here, and not the primary one anymore. So we can see that this has now changed to frames, because the secondary ruler was set to frames. Now, if I want the secondary ruler just in plain seconds, I can now use the time format button. And because the secondary ruler option is engaged, this time format is now going to affect the secondary time readout and the secondary ruler. So if I press that, it's now switched into seconds here. And the secondary ruler has now switched into seconds. Now in version 1.1 of the scripts, the jog wheel has been greatly improved over the previous versions and the old Mackie scripts. However, this only works for Studio One 7. I couldn't get it working in Studio One 6. So if you're on Studio One 6, then the jog wheel is going to do what it always did, which is move backwards and forwards one bar, and that's all it ever does. Now, from Studio One 7, the jog wheel is going to move in the units that the primary ruler is setting, or the secondary ruler if you're using the secondary ruler, if that's engaged. So whichever ruler you're using, the jog wheel is going to move in increments of whatever time format has been set. So the time format here of the primary ruler is bars and beats. So the jog wheel is going to be moving in steps of bars and beats. Here you can see it's moving in beats, one beat at a time. Now, if I want to switch over to the secondary ruler now, then that's in seconds. So this is going to be moving in fractions of a second, and you can see it's snapping to the second boundaries here. So I'll go back to the primary ruler. Now, that works on all of the four formats, by the way, samples and frames as well. Now, the other thing the jog wheel does now is it adapts to the zoom level. So I'm zoomed in fairly close here. This is one bar here from 12 to 13. If I was to zoom out a little bit and make the bars a little bit smaller on the screen, now when I use the jog wheel, instead of going by one beat, it's now going by one bar. And if I move out a little even more, then it's moving by about 4 bars now. And then if I zoom all the way in, then you can see it's moving by probably something like 16th notes. And that also happens on seconds. So if we switch over to the second ruler, which is on seconds, if we zoom right out, you can see it moving a fair number of seconds there, 20 to 30, so that's 10 seconds each now. And then if we zoom in a little bit more, then you can see now it's 1/10 of a second. So that, I think, is a lot more useful than just moving by bars all the time. At least now you can use seconds to jog around if you're using time-based material. If you're doing like music to picture, you can easily switch now using the secondary ruler between moving in beats and moving in seconds. So the last feature we're going to look at is the Jog Fine feature. So when you engage the fine jog mode, it's going to move in smaller increments than the normal default jogging. So we'll go back to the primary ruler now, and we can see we're moving in 1 bar increments here with this zoom level. But if I engage the Jog Fine, I'm now moving in 1/8 notes. And then you can take the Jog Fine off to go back into moving quickly again. Now, you don't have to have the Jog Fine wheel on here. You can engage the Jog Fine mode by just clicking on the jog wheel. That will, as you can see, that's toggling the fine mode on and off. So if you prefer to do that, you can remove this from the touchscreen, or just don't put it on in the first place, and just use the jog wheel. Unfortunately, V1-M users, your jog wheel isn't clickable, so you have to have the touchscreen button if you want to use this feature. Now, the user settings has also been changed in version 1.1. Before, if you made any user settings, if you upgraded to a new version, it would overwrite your user settings file, so you'd have to go in and redo your settings again. That's no longer the case. Your settings will now be preserved between upgrades. The file has been changed now. It used to be, you used to have to edit a JavaScript file. Now you just edit a plain text file, which is a little bit of a safer way of doing things. So I'll just show you an example of changing the user settings and how to get there. So if you go up to the Help menu and go to Open Folder Settings, this will take you to your install folder, and you go to the install folder, so User Devices and iCON Unofficial. So this is where you've copied all your stuff in. And then there is a file here called usersettings.txt. Now this is created after you first run the script. So you have to run the script at least once in order to have this file here. Then you can just edit it in any normal text editor. I can just double click on this in Windows. And this file here is where you edit your options. So I'll just give you a quick example of that. Each of these has a heading, so you can easily see what it is. It then has a little description of what it does. It then has a list of options, so it tells you what you can put in as an option and what each option does. And then finally, the one at the bottom is the actual setting itself, and you just need to change the value after the equal sign. So normally, when you start the script up, it starts off in track mode. Let's say you didn't like that and you prefer it to start up in pan mode. You can come to this particular setting, which is startup scene. So let's just change this from track to pan. I'll delete that and change that to pan. There's all the options you can have. And I'll just save that now. And then go back into Studio One. Now, the settings won't be active until you restart. And the way you do that is to go to this external devices list here. And you'll find that in the Mixer console first. And then if you haven't got this pane open, you can press this button here, Show External Devices. And then you go to your device. I'm using the Nano at the moment. And then you drop this little arrow and then click on Reset. Now it's going to restart, and normally it restarts in track mode, which is what I've got here. But when it restarts this time, it's going to go straight into pan mode. And there's the pan mode now. You can see the pan scene is active.